Welcome to Tony at 12. I'm Tony LeBlanc, and today I'm in conversation with Mark Smith, coordinator of Checkmate and representing Alderney Cancer Research, together with Georgia Diebel, working in the National Health Service with primary care teams such as GP practices and their staff to work on ways to improve the earlier diagnosis of cancers. Because patient outcomes are generally better if diagnosed at an early stage. Mark's representing Cancer Research UK Alderney team, and we're all working together, or hopefully on this campaign, but you two are putting in most of the effort. Good to see you both. Thank you so much for being on Tony at 12.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony.
Can we kick off with the 2023 campaign, Mark? It was called Check It Out, Mate, wasn't it, for the chaps?
Yes, thank you. It's a good place to start. That campaign was the culmination of some earlier efforts from 2015, principally through the golf club and a group of volunteers. And we were mirroring as best we could the activities of Male Uprising Guernsey. And they had a focus at that point on informing people about prostate cancer, and also a dual purpose to raise funds to obtain a scanner, which was more likely to be of use for diagnosis of the prostate gland and so on. COVID intervened, and Jan Walker eventually convinced me to join her committee and a subgroup at about the same time as Georgia. And so last year's campaign was born. You'll be familiar with literature such as this, which popped through the door, and it was impossible to go to a pub without this. And on the reverse of that, there were QR codes with a wealth of information, which was identified and signposted by Georgia. We were only able to do this with the help of a number of key sponsors, which I believe we'll refer to later. Success is perhaps difficult to measure, because at the end of the day, what we wanted to do was put information into the public domain and encourage conversations amongst the Alderney community, so that people might begin to understand their own symptoms, understand their bodies, and where it were necessary to seek a consultation. There is some evidence that this was successful, because we placed at the time £500 into the Alderney Community Assistance Fund, and we understand that was entirely used. Now, that money was specifically to be allocated to people who were in need of financial assistance. We didn't want them to postpone seeing a medical and having a medical examination, because time, as you said in your introduction, is of the essence. So we feel that that was a good start, but this year is a springboard to more, we hope.
And this year we're going to include the ladies.
Very much so.
Yeah. So Georgia, can you give us the? Oh yes, okay. What's the caption? Check it out once again. Yeah.
It's don't be in doubt. Check it out.
Check it out. Gotcha.
Yes.
Gotcha.
So the same Checkmate sort of campaign theme, but this time for women and their potential symptoms. And we've got 2 lots of drinks mats this year, so lots of different QR codes for different conditions, and some for the ladies and some for the gents. So we're running them in parallel this year.
That's good. Can you give us an idea, though, of the stats in terms of the chances of somebody getting affected by cancer during their lifetime?
Yes, Tony. So as we get older, cancer is more common. It's predominantly a condition of aging. But we also know that there are risk factors that contribute to us developing cancer, and they're similar worldwide. But we have about a 1 in 2 chance. So that's 50% of us will develop cancer at some time in our life expectancy for people born after 1960. So unfortunately, cancer is on the increase, and the rates in younger people seem to be going up. So we are noticing that there is a rising trend in children and young adults, and we don't specifically know why, but we know that there are contributing factors. So 4 in 10 cancers could be prevented through modifying our lifestyle. So thinking about smoking, for instance, that causes 15 different types of cancer. And being overweight and obese causes 13 different types of cancer. There are lots of different contributing factors, but that's just the 2 top ones, as it were.
And presumably, as far as lifestyle is concerned, I know it's very easy to be blasé and say, don't do this, don't do that, stop this, stop that. But, you know, I guess we've got to sort of think in terms of smoking, weight, and alcohol consumption as part of the remedy.
I think it's really hard to say to people stop. So I think if we say to people, try to reduce the alcohol, try to do a bit more exercise, have more fiber in your diet. So even if you want the chips, have something healthy with the chips. So you're getting more fiber into the system. That's crucial for our bowel. We know that 28% of bowel cancers could be prevented through eating more fiber in our diet.
So my daily porridge is doing me good
With
a small teaspoonful of sugar.
That's okay. You see, Tony, it's the quantity, isn't it? The big bowl of porridge and the little teaspoon of sugar. So yeah,
you're happy. You passed me on that one.
we put in raisins.
Right. Okay. What, in lieu of sugar?
Yeah, well, they're sweet, and if that doesn't work, a bit of honey.
But the raisins are good because they've got fiber in them as well. So we need fiber for motility, so movement through the bowel.
Okay.
Really important for a healthy bowel.
And I make my porridge out of water, no milk.
Excellent, excellent. That's great.
Yeah, I'm not quite so holy as that.
No, you're on milk, are you?
So I think, Tony, on this sort of prevention message, it's important to remember that cancer is complex. It's a condition. There's 200 different types of cancer. It's not one disease. It's really complex how it starts and how it develops, and that varies hugely as well. And it's influenced by a mixture of things. So our genetics, so, you know, where we come from in terms of our who we inherit conditions from or not. It's those lifestyle choices that we've talked about. And alcohol really is toxic to our system. It's a really hard conversation to have with people because everybody sees it as a social norm. But were it invented now, it wouldn't be licensed because it's toxic. But we could talk for half an hour on that, Tony, so I won't dwell on it.
No, it's just that they think smoking is the bad boy.
Yes.
But alcohol can have a bad effect as well.
Really can.
Yeah.
The combination of the two are particularly bad for the mouth and the throat.
Yeah.
So the combination of inhaling the smoke and swallowing the alcohol, yeah, particularly bad for head and neck cancers, which have really increased since the 1970s because of lifestyle.
And it's fair to say, Georgia, that dentists are on the alert in terms of soft tissue in the mouth?
Absolutely, yeah. When you go to the dentist, they ask you to lift your tongue, move your tongue to the right and the left. They're looking at all the soft tissue in the mouth.
Yeah.
And if you have an ulcer in the mouth that doesn't heal, it's important to see the dentist to get that checked. That's a good point, Tony. Thank you.
How long would you expect a mouth ulcer to be around, Georgia?
Anything more than 2 weeks, you should be seeing.
You should be worrying, yeah. Okay,
yeah.
That's something to bear in mind. Now, as we've already said, more emphasis this time around on women's awareness. And I think, you know, 3 of the main ones that we've identified are breast, which can apply to men as well, I believe, cervical and ovarian.
Yeah.
Breast is obviously fairly easy to come up with, is it, or is it?
So breast is right at the top of the list in terms of the most common cancers. So there are the big 4 that occupy over half of all the cancers that are diagnosed. So that's breast, prostate, lung and bowel, and breast is at the top. And that's partly because we have the screening program, so we're much better at diagnosing it early. So there's two ways that breast cancer generally gets diagnosed. One is if somebody feels a lump or something isn't normal with their breast, so dimpling or oozing from the nipple, other symptoms, not just a lump.
Yeah.
If something's feeling abnormal on self-examination, and seeing the GP about that is important. When people are referred to the breast unit, 9 out of 10 cases aren't cancer. It could be something else. So don't delay. It's important to get it checked. If it is breast cancer, the sooner it is found, the more successful the outcome. And that's the same for most cancers.
What about cervical?
So cervical cancer is a lot further down the list. It's the 14th most common cancer, and it is so because of the success of cervical screening. And so there's a really important message to women and people with the cervix who are listening to this around the importance of screening, because cervical screening is about prevention. It's really unusual for them to find cervical cancer if somebody has been through the screening process, because it's a system that detects changes before they become cancerous, and those changes can be treated, and cervical cancer is 99.8% preventable. Combination of attending for your screening, so women aged 25, 49, it's every 3 years. And then women from 50 to 64, it's every 5 years. And that's because the cell turnover slows down as you get older.
Yeah,
so it doesn't need to be as regular. But it is really important to have that regular appointment.
So presumably the slowdown is partly menopause?
It's not, because it's pre-menopause.
Okay.
But it's to do with the aging process.
Yes,
And
yeah.
they've studied the cells and they know that it doesn't need to be done as frequently. But the other key thing that has been an absolute game changer in terms of cervical cancer risk is the introduction of a vaccine that is given at year 8 in school now to girls and boys, and it's called the HPV vaccine, and that stands for human papillo. Oh, I have to say it to myself.
Don't worry.
Papillomavirus. Yeah. Sorry.
Okay.
Human papillomavirus vaccine, and it's a vaccine that it's given generally before teenagers are sexually active, and it protects them from various strains of this virus that is so common. Most of us will have it in our lifetime. 8 out of 10 people will have this virus at some time, and normally our immune system deals with it on its own. You have no symptoms. You don't know you've got it. You don't know you've had it. It's just something that is there, and the immune system deals with it. But in some cases, it lingers. There are lots of different strains, and they vaccinate against the problematic strains, the ones that would go on to cause changes in the cervix. So by having the vaccine, we can almost eliminate cervical cancer going forward into the future. But screening is the combination, the vaccine and the screening. And boys are having the vaccine now as well, and it protects boys as well as girls into adulthood against all the cancers that can be transmitted by being sexually active. So it's not just penetrative sex, it's the touch elements of it. So it protects all the genitals and the mouth and throat as well.
And
so,
are they doing it at the school, Georgia, here?
They are. It is offered at school here. It's also offered in Guernsey at the Orchard Centre. So if somebody has missed the vaccine in year 8 in school, it's 1 dose now. It used to be 2. They can get it for free at the IMC up to the age of 25 and at the Orchard Centre in Guernsey. And one thing I'd like to say about this, Tony, is it's really a virus not to be ashamed of. It's so common, it's so normal. And I know that it's a topic that sounds taboo to people because it's a sexually transmitted infection, but it's not anything to be embarrassed about. It's something that most of us have either had or have. So, and it can be dormant in our system, and we have no symptoms. We don't know we've got it.
So it's there, but you can combat it. You're basically saying that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Ovarian cancer, that's very difficult to diagnose, isn't it?
It's one of the tricky ones. So yes, in terms of the 3 cancers we're thinking about that are women specific, there's cervical cancer, ovarian, and womb uterine cancer. So ovarian has historically been the one that has been deemed as having no symptoms. But in fact, over time, research has shown us that people do have symptoms, and that it's important that if a woman notices a change in the way she feels, and this is what we're saying about being body aware, if a woman notices that her tummy area feels different, so she feels a bloating or an unusual need to wee, a sense of fullness in the tummy that wasn't there before, alongside any sort of menstrual changes, it's really important to see the GP and get that checked. They're very subtle symptoms, Tony. It's not screaming out there's something wrong. It's a much more subtle thing. So it's really important. I'm just looking at the list as well in the pamphlet we've done. Loss of appetite is another one alongside that idea of feeling full, pain in the tummy, and as I mentioned, bloating and needing to wee more.
Yeah.
So
And
it's not an obvious thing.
how do you treat it, Georgia? Is it curable?
It will depend, Tony, on the stage of diagnosis as well. So there's a combination of treatments for ovarian cancer, as there is for all of them. It is dependent on the stage at which it's found. Yeah. So for ovarian, the immediate thing would be surgery.
Yeah. But it's all about early pickup, isn't it? Just a small point for anyone watching. Mammograms are available in Guernsey for over 75s, but they don't send out any reminders, and there's no free airfare. But, you know, if you're going down to Guernsey for a day or two, they'll probably try and fit you in, and it's well worth doing even at advanced age. Would you agree?
I would agree. I also, in sort of researching this for chatting with you, I did a little bit of a comparison of what's available on the mainland and what's available here. So the window of age on the mainland is slightly different to here, and the timing. So here it's from the age of 50 to 75 every 2 years. And on the mainland, it's 50 to 70. Yeah. Then you have to request it. So you're getting it to 75 here without having to request it. So it's 5 years longer here. So there's a slightly different policy. And alongside mammograms, what's important is to remember not to sort of sign yourself off and say, oh, everything was fine, I won't bother about anything for the next 2 years. It's regular checking of your own breast tissue for men and women. It is very rare in men, breast cancer, but yes, that regular touch, look and check.
So put it in the diary and arrange the appointment before lunch.
Absolutely. So if you're over 75, yes, there's no reason to.
Yeah, and you would recommend it?
So I think it's not for me to recommend. It's personal choice for everybody, but consider it. Yeah.
Okay, that sounds good. Let's get on to bowel cancer, because I had a go at this earlier on this year. Very easy to get the poo packed from Guernsey. And having done the business, sent it back, got a letter fairly shortly after saying all okay. You know, so a lot of people, I think, are afraid to deal with these things because they think something like that's initially going to be intrusive, and it isn't. It's a stick which is held externally. But you know what? Once again,
did it last year.
Yeah, I did it last year. Now, I would add to that. Actually, it's it couldn't be simpler.
Yeah,
and you do get. I was fortunate, and I believe most people will you do get the reassurance that that tummy rumble is nothing sinister. You know, you're fine.
Just a good old-fashioned tummy rumble.
Yeah, that's right. Too many hamburgers or something.
So with the poo test, it's called the Fit Kit, and
Right.
everyone in the bailiwick is sent the kit every 2 years from the age of 60 to 70 here. There's a slight variation with the England range, but that's the age range here. But just to say that bowel screening is for the general population without symptoms, and it's a really good test, as you say, very easy to do. You send it back to the lab in Guernsey, they check it for hidden blood that none of us can see with the naked eye. And that tells us whether we might have blood leaking from polyps, which are like little skin tags in the lining of the bowel. And if you do have polyps, those can be removed. And those polyps are the things that turn cancerous. So again, it's a bit like the cervical screening. Bowel screening prevents bowel cancer.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it really is an excellent screening test. But to say again here, if you have symptoms, if you have a change in bowel habit, it's on our drinks mats. Don't ignore changes in bowel habits. So if you have any bleeding from the back passage or blood in your poo, any change in bowel habits, so it's looser, you're pooing more often, or you've got constipation, or you feel any lumps in your tummy or in the bowel area, or you have weight loss that you can't explain, or pain. If you've got symptoms, don't wait for your screening test and don't rely on that to be the all clear. If you've got symptoms, you need to get them checked.
I mean, may I add, is in terms of creating awareness and with the literature out there, perhaps conversations, and alluding to the fact that 1 in 2 of us are likely to have cancer of some form or another in our lifetimes, not to have bowel screening or not to engage in it really is just something that is not what I would say a sensible choice. It's a very easy choice. There is nothing to it. Yeah,
agreed. Couldn't agree more with you.
Yeah.
Let's get on to the age-old topic of moles and lumps. Georgia.
So, Tony, this is a real problem in the bailiwick in terms of skin cancer being the highest of anywhere in the UK. So I think we said last year we're very blessed with the good fortune of the lovely island and its weather and beaches and things, but also for the workmen who are working on the island. I have noticed in recent years there's less of the taking the tops off and working shirtless. And it's important in the midday sun that everybody is protecting the top of their head, particularly men need to protect the top of their head and their torso. For women, it tends to be more the calves and the arms where there's sort of a difference in terms of the way we dress that does affect cancer risk. And too much sun changes the way our body can react, and that's when a change in the DNA causes skin cancer to develop. So 9 out of 10 cases of melanoma could be prevented through safe sun exposure. So sun is really important for all of us for vitamin D, but we need to do it safely. So if you're out in the sun thinking about sunscreen, making sure you've got the SPF factor, and on the bottle also there are star ratings, and you want 4 or 5 stars for that UVA and UVB protection, both together. That's really important. Hats cover up in the middle of the heat. It's not rocket science, Tony.
No, it's obvious, isn't it, in many respects?
Yeah, it is.
I think with personal choice again, we never use anything less than 50 factor, and I actually can't see why you would.
No. I suppose it is 50 factor more expensive.
No, I'm
harder to put on, I would say.
Yeah, maybe, but
sticky, factor 30 is a good minimum, as it were.
Yeah. Okay. It's
Okay.
interesting. We're talking about builders and their bare torsos.
Mm.
Health and safety demands probably they wear the
It didn't used
protection.
to, but
Didn't
yes.
used to, but now,
No.
you know, perhaps that's really a health and safety issue that is doing some good.
Absolutely. It's
Yeah.
a blessing in disguise, as it were.
Now, we did also in our exchange of information talk about regular blood tests. I was really getting at the fact that I go along every 6 months to get a PSA and a few other bits and pieces, and um, it seems to me that it's a very important thing to do because they can pick up stuff from the blood test, can't they? Apart from PSA.
So, in terms of a blood test, it depends what the GP requests.
Yeah.
So there's such a wide gamut of blood tests that the GP can look at. They would typically order the test that relates to a symptom that you're describing or an ailment that they think needs investigating. There is a standard range of bloods called a full blood count that isn't a cancer test.
No.
But if, for instance, you had a low iron count in your blood, that can be due to many reasons, but one of them could be a contributing factor to them exploring further for whether you might have a particular type of cancer. So there are triggers in the GP's thinking from tests that would then lead to further tests, as opposed to there being a blood test that diagnoses cancer.
Tony, apologies. I mean, Tony, I confess that last year I realised that my understanding of the PSA was really rather short of, understanding enough about the pros and cons of that. I, like you, have a PSA 6 monthly, but I now accept that actually there's more to it than meets the eye. So a false positive, may have a consequences and so on. The message here I would give is, by all means do, but make sure that it's doubled up with consultation with the doctors so that you can better understand the outcome.
Yeah, agreed.
I would also say about, sorry, Tony, about the PSA test. You're in a different health system here. So on the mainland, you wouldn't get a PSA every 6 months because it wouldn't make logical sense in terms of NHS budget and what PSA is telling you. But if you are having it regularly, one of the key parts of understanding it is that if it's gradually rising, the rate at which it rises can be, so it rises with age very, very slowly. But if it keeps rising and the ratio of rise suddenly jumps, that's when the GP would think, is there something going on?
Yeah.
They would then consider referring you. So there's real nuance and skill to interpreting blood results, which is why that knowledge sits with the GP and then they have to make a referral based on what they're seeing. So 6 monthly checks, I would say, is very frequent. An annual PSA, if everything's normal, I wouldn't be paying for, if I were a man, I wouldn't be paying for a PSA test every 6 months. It doesn't merit doing it. Annually would be fine.
Yeah, I mean, I would emphasize the reason that I do is because it's just another box to tick at the IMC.
Yeah.
Because I'm having blood tests just to check that the system isn't doing any harm. Okay, so
yeah, I'm in the same. I'm in the same position.
And so there's no payment in that regard.
And the other thing is that I always get a copy of the blood test from the doctor. They'll do that for a small fee. Then you can assemble your own record. But keep an eye on progress. Is it going up? And is it going up at such a rate that I really need to go back to the doctor and say, look, should we have a talk about it, as it were?
Is there a trend in it?
Yes. Yeah.
And And specifically for men with that PSA test, if you've got queries, I would suggest talking to Prostate Cancer UK's nurse helpline, because they're experts on interpreting the PSA.
Yeah.
Just to plug also, for some years now, I subscribe to Prostate UK and I receive a weekly newsletter.
Yeah.
And in the realms of being informed on what's going on in terms of, if you like, bringing up a screening program fit for purpose for the population, an awful lot is being done by that charitable sector. So by all means, look at their information. There is much to learn, but taking a leaf out of your book, yeah, why wouldn't you take a greater interest in understanding the trends yourself?
Yeah.
Rather than leaving a room, after a consultation and not being entirely sure what you just heard.
Now, the clock is beating us here, I'm sorry to have to say,
Yeah.
but we've got a few minutes left. So first of all, I think you should mention the sponsors, please.
Yeah, without all of their very generous assistance, this wouldn't have been possible. And in no particular order, from last year and into this year, we co-mingle the funds. Alderney Electricity Limited, Blanchard, our local distributor, the Fort Group have been very generous again. Guernsey Post, who are going to be delivering the leaflets, both male and female, to all 1,600 postal addresses in Alderney in the coming week. The IMC, of course, without full cooperation with them and understanding, this would be a much reduced opportunity. The Rotary Club here in Alderney, and last but not least, the 41 Club here in Alderney, who have again been very generous with their sponsorship of this year's event.
And we really must mention our friend Jan Walker for all the fundraising that she does for Cancer Research UK. She's absolutely dedicated.
Well, she underwent 2 sea crossings, one of which in the morning to get over to meet His Majesty the King and Queen.
Yeah.
Representing the island in her specific interest, which is Cancer Research UK.
Yeah.
She took along our literature, which was passed and discussion continued. And of course, the King made obvious reference to the points that we've made in this interview. Of course, he's highly involved in this area and very impressed with the work that is being done here to raise awareness.
That's good.
He's patron of Cancer Research UK.
Yeah.
And I think, it's important when we're thinking about the island raising money, people often think about it going off island, but what it's doing is bringing the research into real time for treatments like radiotherapy and chemotherapy, which is given in Guernsey or Southampton.
Yeah.
The cervical screening program, all of this came out of research from Cancer Research UK that is informing practice for all of us on an everyday basis.
Tony, as you say, and in view of the time, may I also slip in?
Yes, please do.
This work continues, and I don't know how we're going to feature this work next year in the years to come, but we've been in touch with the Alderney Care Board. We've reached the directors of that, and Heidi Soulsby sent us, as a member of that board, sent us a very helpful update on thinking in terms of the Committee for Employment, Social Security and a care system for the future. Now, we all know state intervention has to take its place, and it's not normally at the speed that we want. But what is important, this is very high up in their thinking, and I understand from the likes of Al Brouard that they're very impressed with the quality of the work and the output that people can receive. So we're here to keep on pushing that envelope. And
I've pushed you in the diary for next year, Mark.
Well, I mean, yes,
or earlier if you like.
Yeah, because we may be a small team, but we are committed to what we think is the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And I think we said it last year, it needs to be said now. If any of this just improves the outcome of one person, of course, that's good enough.
Yeah, of course it is, yeah.
And hopefully it'll receive greater acknowledgement and understanding as we meet each year to try and improve on what we've done the previous.
Okay, so the slogan in 7 words is don't be in doubt, check it out.
Absolutely, Tony.
It's been a pleasure to see you both. I'm sorry we've run out of time, but keep up the good work. It is appreciated. And both take care of yourselves.
Well, thank you, Tony.
Thank you very much, Tony.
All the
Bye now.
best. Bye.
Bye.